Hello friends and welcome to Miss Debbie's Storybook STEM class. I'm so glad you're here to join me. Before we get started with our lesson, let's sing our hello song. Here goes. It's time to wave our hands and say hello, hello. It's time to wave our hands and say hello, hello. I'm so glad that you are here. Are you ready to have some fun? Let's smile and wave our hands and say hello. Hello friends and welcome again to Miss Debbie's Storybook STEM class, where we always find a little bit of science in every book we read. Well, today we are going to be reading a book called Gruffalo's Child. What is a Gruffalo? Well, we are going to find out by reading this fun book. And this book is going to show us a lot of different animal tracks in the snow. Have you ever gone outside and seen animal tracks in the mud or in the snow? Miss Debbie has. Actually, today I saw my cat's animal tracks outside on my porch because there's a little bit of snow on my porch and I can see little kitty cat paw prints all over my porch. I could also see my own footprints on the porch as well. Now, if Miss Debbie went outside and started to explore through the woods or through my backyard, I might see some other animal foot tracks, like maybe some deer or some birds or a fox. Now, it's fun for us to look for animal tracks in the snow and try to guess which animal they belong to. But animal tracks are very important for scientists, because scientists find out a lot about all different kinds of animals by looking at their animal tracks. Now, they can tell by the animal tracks if this animal has 2 feet, 4 feet, if they travel alone or if they travel with groups, if they run or if they're walking slow, if they're a big animal or a small animal. There's so much that scientists can find out about animals just by looking at their tracks. So we are going to do a lot of fun activities today with animal tracks, but before we get started, let's read our fun book called The Gruffalo's Child. And this book is by Julia Donaldson and pictures are by Alex Scheffler. This book is a lot of fun. Let's get started. The Gruffalo's Child. Look at that. It looks like he is walking through the woods in the snow. And if you look at his face, does he look a little bit nervous? I think so, and I wonder why. Let's find out. The Gruffalo said that no Gruffalo should ever set foot in the deep, dark wood. Why not? Why not? Because if you do, the big bad mouse will be after you. I met him once, said the Gruffalo. I met him a long, long time ago. Big bad mouse? Mice are really small. Let's see what happens. What does he look like? Tell me, Dad. Is he terribly big and terribly bad? I can't quite remember, the Gruffalo said. Then he thought for a minute, and he scratched his head. The big bad mouse is terribly strong, and his scaly tail is terribly long. His eyes are like pools of terrible fire, and his terrible whiskers are tougher than wire. Yikes! He sounds scary. One snowy night, while the Gruffalo snored, the Gruffalo's child was feeling bored. The Gruffalo's child was feeling brave, so she tiptoed out of the Gruffalo cave. The snow fell fast and the wind blew wild. Into the wood went the Gruffalo's child. Oh boy. She's a very brave Gruffalo. Aha! Aho! A trail in the snow. Whose is this trail and where does it go? A tail poked out of a log pile house. Could this be the tail of the big bad mouse? What do you think? What does that tail look like? Does it look like the tail of a big bad mouse? What do you think? You think it's a snake? Let's see if you're right. Out slid the creature. His eyes were small, and he didn't have whiskers. No, none at all. You're not the mouse. Not I, said the snake. He's down by the lake eating Gruffalo cake. Oh boy, the snow fell fast and the wind blew wild. I'm not scared, said the Gruffalo's child. There she goes. Aha, aho, tracks in the snow. Whose are these claw marks and where do they go? Two eyes gleamed out of a treetop house. Could these be the eyes of the big bad mouse? What do you think? Are those the eyes of a big bad mouse? Who lives in a little hole in the tree? An owl. That's right. Let's see if we're right. Down flew the creature. His tail was short, and he didn't have whiskers of any sort. You're not the mouse. Too-hoo, not I. But he's somewhere nearby eating Gruffalo pie. Ooh, all these yummy desserts. The snow fell fast and the wind blew wild. I'm not scared, said the Gruffalo's child. Do you see the deer peeking through? Aha! Aho! A track in the snow. Whose is this track and where does it go? Whiskers at last and an underground house. Could this be the home of the big bad mouse? It's got a long pointed nose and some whiskers. And he's in a little cave. What do you think? Do you think that's the mouse? You think it's a fox? Let's see if you're right. Out slunk the creature. His eyes weren't fiery, his tail wasn't scaly, and his whiskers weren't wiry. You're not the mouse. Oh no, not me. He's under a tree drinking Gruffalo tea. You're right, it was a fox. It's all a trick, said the Gruffalo's child, as he sat on a stump where the snow lay piled. I don't believe in the big bad mouse. But here comes a little one, out of his house. Not big, not bad, but a mouse at least. You'll taste good as a midnight feast. Oh no. Look at his snowman that he made. Is that a snowman of a Gruffalo? And that definitely is a mouse. But he doesn't look big and bad, does he? Let's see what happens next. Wait, said the mouse, before you eat, there's a friend of mine that you ought to meet. If you let me hop onto a hazel twig, I'll beckon my friend, so bad and big. Oh no. The Gruffalo's child unclenched her fist. The big bad mouse? So he does exist? The mouse hopped into the hazel tree. He beckoned and said, just wait and see. I wonder what's going to happen. See more tracks in the snow? Are those from the mouse, the little mouse tracks? Out came the moon. A big bright light in the sky. It was bright and round. A terrible shadow fell on to the ground. Do you see the shadow on the ground? It's the shadow of the little mouse. Is he tricking the Gruffalo's child? Who is this creature so big, bad, and strong? His tail and his whiskers are terribly long. His ears are enormous, and over his shoulder he carries a nut as big as a boulder. Yikes! Oh no. The big bad mouse, yelled the Gruffalo's child. The mouse jumped down from the twig and smiled. Aha, aho, prints in the snow. Whose are these footprints and where do they go? Is the mouse looking at the Gruffalo's child's footprints? Everybody has footprints in the snow. That Gruffalo's child sure was scared. The footprints led to the Gruffalo cave, where the Gruffalo's child was a bit less brave. The Gruffalo's child was a bit less bored. And the Gruffalo's child snored and snored and snored. There's the silly little mouse. Did he trick the Gruffalo's child? Yes, he did. He acted like he was the big bad mouse, but it was actually just his shadow. Everybody has a shadow. If you stand in front of a light of some sort, the moon, or a light in your house, or even the sun, your shadow will fall on the ground next to you. So that silly little mouse tricked that poor little Gruffalo's child into thinking that he was a big bad mouse. Silly mouse. So let's get started with some of our fun animal track STEM activities. Here goes. Okay, so for our first activity, we are going to have fun making our very own animal tracks indoors. Now, what you'll need for this activity is some animals. If you have any play animals, you can use those. Or if you have figurines of people, you can make footprints of the people that you have. If you don't have animals, don't worry at all. Miss Debbie has another idea that you could do to make some tracks as well. Now you're going to need either, Miss Debbie has some fake snow that I got from Amazon, but if you don't have that, you could use some flour or some cornstarch or some Play-Doh. And if you don't have Play-Doh, Miss Debbie has some paint and a white piece of paper, and I'm going to paint the animal tracks and put them on the paper to see what they look like too. Now, after we've made our animal tracks, we are going to take our animals and try to figure out who made what track by looking at the animal, just like the scientists do. So let's get started. So the first thing that you can do is to take your play snow or your flour or your cornstarch and take your animals or the people figurines that you found and just push them into the snow. And you can see little animal tracks. This doesn't work as well as it does with the Play-Doh, so I'm going to show you with the Play-Doh how that works. And you can simply just push down the deer hoofs and then pull them up, and you can see the animal tracks there. Then I have a bear. You can push those down and gently pull it up, and you can see the bear animal tracks too. The next thing that you can do if you don't have Play-Doh or flour is to take a little paint and put it on the feet of your animal and push it down on some paper. And there you can see some animal tracks on your paper. The last thing you can do if you don't have any of these things is to either draw your animal track. Miss Debbie has a piece of paper here with lots of different animal tracks that you can play I Spy with and count how many of the different animal tracks you found. But you can also use this as a guide to draw your own animal track. Miss Debbie has a toothpick here, and I can draw a bear paw print here. Just like so. And then you can push it down and start all over again. If you don't have the Play-Doh, you, like I said, can take a piece of paper and crayons and a marker and try to draw your own animal tracks. Okay, the next activity that we're going to be doing is we are going to be doing a little bit of math by measuring our foot or some animal tracks that we can find outside on a nature walk with someone from our family or friend, and we can go outside and see how many different animal tracks we can find, and we can measure them using standard measurement, which is a ruler, and we can check to see how many inches or centimeters the print is, or we could use non-standard measurement. That means we can use any type of toy that we have or manipulative. Miss Debbie has some beads that are the same size here, or I have some cubes. So what I've done is taken a piece of paper and a marker and I've traced one of my feet. And then I am going to measure my foot to see how big it is. So I'm going to use the ruler, and you're going to start at the very beginning. That's where 0 is, right before the 1. And you're going to put it up against the end of your foot and bring it all the way up to the top. And Miss Debbie's foot is 10 inches long. So you're going to do that with your own foot. You can do it with your family, and you can measure your foot sizes together and see who has a bigger footprint and who has a smaller footprint. And then Miss Debbie can use some cubes. And maybe I'm going to guess how many cubes this will be before I try it. I'm going to guess and say it's going to be about 10. Let's see if I'm right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I don't think so. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I was close. 12, 13. So I'm 13 cubes in length. That's how long my foot is. So I want you to have fun measuring your feet and some animal tracks. Okay, so for our next activity, we're going to explore shadows, because that silly little mouse really tricked the Gruffalo's child into making the Gruffalo's child think that he was a big bad mouse. He made himself appear so much bigger by making himself a shadow. So what we're going to need for this activity is some source of light. You can use a lamp, you can go outside if it's sunny, or if you have a flashlight, you can use a flashlight indoors. Miss Debbie has included a printable of a mouse. You can use that if you'd like, cut it out, and maybe attach it to some cardboard, because if it's just thin paper, it won't really block the light. And that's the whole idea of a shadow, is to have light and something to block the light and something for your shadow to land on. So Miss Debbie has traced it out, and I have made my own little shadow puppet here of a mouse. This mouse is pretty big, but I'm going to show you by making a shadow and putting some light on my mouse how much bigger it actually appears. I'm not sure if you can see that, but what you can do at home is to put your puppet up against a wall or a plate here, and then shine your flashlight on it. And you're going to put your flashlight farther away and then bring it close. If you look closely, Miss Debbie has 2 little eye cutouts here, and you can see how much bigger they are when I put my flashlight closer. Look at the whole face of the mouse is bigger than the plate. Then if I pull my flashlight away a little bit, the mouse gets a little bit smaller, if you can see that. Now you don't have to use a puppet. You could also use a little stuffed animal. Miss Debbie has a pine cone here. I'm going to show you this is the size of my pine cone, and when I put some light on it to make a shadow, look how much bigger my pine cone appears on the plate below. So that's how the mouse tricked the Gruffalo's child into thinking that he was the big bad mouse. Thank you so much for joining me today for reading The Gruffalo's Child and learning about animal tracks. And before we sing our goodbye song, Miss Debbie wanted to make sure that I showed you some of these animals' animal footprints or tracks. There's a little bear, a polar bear. See, he has some toes and a pad. Just like us, we have toes on our foot as well. And the same with the bear. He has some bigger footprints. He has some bigger toes and a bigger pad. And my sloth here has some claws, just like the owl. And these are what the claws look like on his foot. See that? So everybody has different footprints. So before we say goodbye, Miss Debbie wants to make sure you stay happy and healthy, my friends. Here we go with our goodbye song. It's time to wave our hands and say goodbye. Goodbye! It's time to wave our hands and say goodbye. Goodbye! We've had lots of fun, my friends, and we'll do it all again. It's time to wave our hands and say goodbye. Goodbye, friends. I'll see you next week.